Okay, so in this video we're going to talk about performance in the kitchen as it pertains to labor. You may have heard the term KPIs or key performance indicators. These are mathematical equations that we use to calculate how well we're doing at our job, right? So we need ways to measure our performance, and then we can set targets or goals for our employees to get better, right? It allows us to measure and evaluate employees' performance and the team as well, right? Some of them will allow us to measure an entire team and how their productivity is depending on the indicators that we're using. So the first one we're going to talk about is coming up here in a second, sales per person hour. But what you first need to know is what's a person hour, right? And that's really how many hours a person worked. So if I had one person working 8 hours, that's 8 person hours. If I had 2 people working 8-hour shift, that would be 16 person hours, right? The other thing you need to know as we go through this is the term covers. So what's a cover? A cover is a customer, a guest that comes in. So how many covers can we serve in per person hour will be the number of customers we can serve per person per hour, right? So the first one we're going to look at is actual dollars per person hour. So how much money can we make per person hour that we spend? So for every hour of labor that we spend, what's a good target on our business? And these numbers are going to fluctuate based on the style of business you have, right? Because if you have a high labor type business like a fine dining restaurant versus a buffet restaurant, this number is going to be different, right? So the way we calculate that is it's right in the title, right? Sales per or sales divided by person hour gives us our sales per person hour value, right? So first example I have here, we have a 4-hour dinner service and a restaurant earns $8,425 in sales. We have 3 cooks and 2 dishwashers and all work a 4-hour shift. Calculate our sales per person hour for this team. So the first thing you need to do is figure out how many hours you're paying. Not how many people are working, but how many hours of labor are you paying if you own this restaurant. So we have 3 cooks and 2 dishwashers. So we have 5 employees and they're all working 4-hour shifts. Times 4 is going to give us 20 person hours, right? Because we had 5 people, each worked a 4-hour shift. So 5 people times 4 is going to give us 20 hours. So if we had $8,425 divided by 20 hours, it's going to give us a sales per person hour of $421.25 per person hour. And the slash also is a per, right? So 420 for every hour of labor we spent in the kitchen, because it's cooks and dishwashers, we generated $421.25. So is that the standard? Is that good? Is that bad? Well, it really depends on your business, right? Generally, you're going to calculate these on departments. So here's your efficiency of sales per kitchen department, right? The next thing we're going to look at is covers per person, because yes, we can generate $421 per person, but was that one person that came in and spent $421, right? So we have to look at both KPIs or both key performance indicators. Yes, the dollars per hour is an important number, but it also comes with a caveat that we need to worry about the covers per person hour as well, because yeah, one person came in and spent $400, so we have one cover, but we could have one cover in and buy a coffee for $2, right? So it can really swing both ways. So we have to look at averages. So covers per person hour, again, the formula is right in the name. So our covers per person hours equals our covers for the period divided by the person hours for that period, right? So in the example, we've got a team of 3 cooks and 1 dishwasher that work from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for lunch service and serve 295 covers. What is our team's covers per person hour? So first of all, what's our person hours? We had 4 employees times how many hours? So from 11 till 2, that's 3 hours, right? 3 gives us 12 hours. So there's our person hours. So now we want to know how many covers can we serve with those 12. So we had 295 covers divided by our 12 is going to give us a covers per person hour of, as I calculate here, 24.6 CVR per hour. So 24.6 guests or customers can be served per 1 hour of labor out of the kitchen, right? And again, this is just the measurement of what the actually is going. So you can use this to calculate, if you know what your estimated covers are going to be and you know what your covers per hour is for your kitchen, you can say, okay, 400 people coming in tomorrow night, how many hours worth of labor can I spend in order to maintain this 24.6 covers per hour, right? The next thing we want to talk about I wanted to talk about looking at them both, right? So like I said earlier, we could have had one person come in and have a $421 bill, and that's our, sales per cover hour or sales per hour. But conversely, we could have one person come in and buy a coffee for $2, and we spent all these hours, right? So we'd have very much smaller covers per hour if just one person came in and bought a coffee. So we have to look at them side by side and make sure that there's a balance between sales per person hour and covers per person hour, because you can't do just one on their own, right? Whether the customer spends $400 or spends $2, we still need to serve them, right? We still need to clean the table, clear the table, things like that, right? When we look at them both together, they can help interpret our labor cost numbers and see how they're impacted by varying wage rates and employees scheduled. The last one we want to look at is our errors per cover measure. So this is a way of measuring how good we are at our job for quality, right? So when we have an error, it can sometimes be a void or an error. Depends how your business tracks this, right? So generally it's a mistake that results in an unsellable dish. It got burnt, it got dropped, customer didn't like it, whatever, right? It's something messed up. Steak was overcooked, something like that, right? So we want to keep these to a minimum, right? So errors per cover is just like in the name, the formula's there. Errors in a period divided by the covers in the period. So what this is a ratio between how many customers came in and how many times we screwed up, right? This should always be less than 1, right? Because if you had one cover come in and you messed up, that's 1 divided by 1 would be 1, right? That means you're making an error every time a customer comes in. So errors per cover should always be a decimal lower than 0, right? Errors per cover should not change with business volume, or management must act to improve employee work quality. This is where it becomes important that if business picks up and gets busier, that you're adding more staff so that the staff that are there aren't overworked and thus making more mistakes, right? So an example on how to calculate this. So a restaurant served 417 guests during dinner, but had 13 food errors. So what's our restaurant's errors per cover rate? Well, we had 13 errors and we served 417 people. So 13 divided by 417 gives us 0.031 errors per cover. So what that really translates into, 3.1% of the time we messed up, right? If we look at that as a percentage, 3.1% of the time we're messing up. Is that good? I'd say it's pretty high for errors, right? So if you have a high errors per cover rate, that's where you have to start investigating. Do we have an employee that doesn't care and we need to retrain them or remove them? Or are we not scheduling enough staff to make sure that the errors aren't happening, right? Maybe they're overworked. It's not an easy, we have a high errors per cover rate, this is what we need to do. What these numbers and these KPIs do is allow us triggers that we need to go in and investigate. Why is it the way it is, right? Is it acceptable? Is it not acceptable, right? Now, I mentioned this should be always less than 0. So if we forgot how to set up our formula, and we did 417 divided by 13, and we did that, 417 divided by 13, we would have got an error per cover of 32.1. That means we messed up 32 times for every customer that came in. Doesn't seem logical. It's not possible, right? So this is a kind of situation where you should be thinking, does that answer make sense, right? I know I've said this before, but you should really be looking at, instead of just plugging and blindly writing down the numbers that are coming out of your calculator, that you're saying, okay, does this number make sense? How can I mess up 32 times for every customer that comes in? So thus, we did our formula backwards, okay? All right, so that's the video on key performance indicators.